Okay. Hi, Tony, and good morning, everyone. So my name is Alvin. I am a SOC engineer at Safaricom, mainly supporting the DAT system, ensuring full observability for the DAT systems. So I'll be taking you through the session. So what to expect is that I'll give a brief overview of what Elasticstack is all about, and then I'll do a demo on how you can basically install it and use it for you on your PC or on a server you're running, or on, I mean, if you want to deploy it on the cloud as well. Let me share my screen. I hope you can see my screen. Tony, you can confirm.
Yes, I can see.
Okay. Yeah. So one may wonder what ELK or the Elasticstack is all about. So it's basically a log monitoring and analytics solution that is made up of 3 open source tools or technologies. It's actually an acronym, that is ELK. The E stands for Elasticsearch. The L stands for Logstash, and the K for Kibana. Kibana is the web UI, or the interface where now you do your data visualizations. Elasticsearch is a search and analytics engine. It is also used to now index and store your logs. So any data that you ingest to ELK, it's stored as in a form of logs. That's why it's called a log analytics solution. Then Logstash, on the other hand, is now the data ingestion and transformation pipeline that is used to, now you ingest data from multiple sources, you aggregate them, you transform them from one form to another, for example, to JSON, and then now you output that data to Elasticsearch, where it's indexed and stored. On the left, you can see basically a diagram that shows the flow, the data flow. You can see from now the ingestion, which is now where you have the agents, and then that data goes to Logstash. It's transformed. You transform it to a different format that can be stored, and then stored on Elasticsearch, and then now you use Kibana to visualize your data. So the next thing is the data collection. So for the data collection, it is usually done using the agents. So on the left, you can see there now the servers, or maybe a PC, or wherever you're running your workload from. Could be a container, maybe it's on cloud. So you one of the agents that is installed is called the bits. So the bits are basically lightweight data shippers that are used to ingest different data sources. For example, FileBit is used to collect log files from the servers, um, wherever you've installed it. Then MetricBit is used to collect system metrics. Could be system metrics in terms of like the infra metrics, like CPUs, memory, disk, and so on and so forth. It could also be used to collect metrics from systems like HA proxy, from something like RabbitMQ, different kinds of systems. So as long as you have their system metrics in those servers or systems, you can install MetricBit. Then the other one is PacketBit. It's used to capture network traffic. So you can capture network traffic as from the network interface card, and then visualize that traffic on Kibana. Then you have AuditBit, which is used to now collect the security data, like the audit syslog and Windows security logs. Then you have Heartbeat. Heartbeat is mostly used for the synthetics. It is used for monitoring uptime and availability by basically you send periodic requests for services. But I'll speak about now the synthetic solution on ELK. Then last you have the WinLog. It's basically another form of FileBit, but it's used now for Windows devices. Now, if you want to have an agent with all these capabilities instead of only installing one type of bit, you can install the Elastic agent. The Elastic agent now will combine all these functionalities, and yeah, so if you need maybe 2 or 3, you can just use the Elastic agent instead of using one type of bit. Then the last kind of agent is called the APM agent. It's basically collect stats to do with application performance. So you can collect metrics that define your application performance. Metrics like the response time for your transactions going through. You can collect metrics for database queries and external requests. You can collect metrics for throughput, how much traffic. Is there a question? Okay, but you can stop me at any point and ask your question if you have one. So I was saying you can install an APM agent, but it's only used for specific type of technologies like Java, .NET, Ruby, I think Django as well, and Node.js. So it's not used for all the kind of, like, you cannot use it for collect application performance for all different kinds of applications. Next thing we'll go through is now the advantages of using now ELK. So one, as I've mentioned before, is basically you can have end-to-end view of your systems through now log monitoring and the metrics, different system metrics. It also saves a lot of cost considering it's open source compared to other tools, other monitoring tools where you normally pay. You pay for you to use the different, the tools themselves. And then another thing on ELK is that it allows you to build on it. You can use other open source technologies to complement on the areas where it lacks maybe a certain functionality that you want to use. So yeah, so one thing that's a very key advantage. And then the last thing is it has a wide range of integrations that are used to now for monitoring of certain systems, which I'll talk about in the next slide. Okay, so basically integrations are ways of picking or rather having specialized monitoring for certain application and systems. So for certain applications, for example, for Postgres or different kinds of databases, you find that they have a specific log path where they'll normally store the logs pertaining that system. So what happens is that now ELK has a specialized data pipeline that is used to collect and pass those logs and visualize them on now Kibana. So what happens is that for these kinds of systems, you find that the log formats are very standard. So you can so they are already inbuilt custom pipelines to now do the passing and visualize your data on Kibana. So there are very many integrations for different kinds of system. Even Logstash itself, you can monitor it on ELK. If you have many probably Logstash nodes that you'd want to monitor, you can also do it on ELK. You can also monitor your own Elasticsearch on ELK. You can monitor these open source databases like Postgres on ELK. You can monitor things like Oracle, WebLogic, Redis, RabbitMQ, and so many other different kinds of systems. The next thing that the other capability I'll talk about is now the synthetic monitors. So basically, synthetic monitors is a method of monitoring web application services and networks by basically you're simulating user interactions. So you if you have a service that or an application that you would like to see what the experience on the user side, so you can use some of these monitors to do that. For example, we have a TCP monitor that is used for checking the availability and responsiveness of TCP ports. So if you need to check whether a certain port that where a certain service is deployed on is up or not, you can use the TCP monitor, and then now it will have a visualization like the one you have on the right. the one you can see on the right. So it will basically tell you whether the port is up or down, and how much, I mean, how long it took for you to get now the response from the monitor. Then you also have HTTP monitors that are used to check the availability and the performance of HTTP endpoints. You can also use URLs and APIs. You can use the HTTP monitor to check the availability and performance of those endpoints. Then there's also a multi-step monitor. A multi-step monitor is basically can call it's basically you mimic, like, for example, if your web portal, you want to check, like, if certain tabs are loading and so on and so forth, you basically record the journey, that basically record the login. You click on a certain tab, you record the output. You click on the next tab, you record the output, and then that recording, you'll use it on the multi-step monitor to basically so it will continuously mimic that journey, and it will tell you if maybe it's failing at a certain point, maybe at a certain time a tab or a certain dashboard is not loading. Then you get now an alert, or rather it will show on the dashboard. Then lastly, you also have ICMP monitors that are used basically to check the availability of your host. Okay, then next I'll go through. So these are some for dashboards that are found on ELK. These are stock dashboards. So you can see, like, on this dashboard, it's for a certain site. So you can see you have a tile for the number of unique visitors, the number of bytes, the sum of bytes from large requests. You have the website traffic. You can see the page URLs and how many clients are going through, I mean, a certain URL. Page views by location and referral. So you can have a dashboard. If these stats are important to you, you can use the different tools on ELK to come up with such a dashboard. Then you also then I also have a dashboard on. This is the dashboard on PostgreSDB. So once you install metric bit and a file bit, or install the Elastic agent, you can be able to get these metrics. So you can see, you can be able to get the query latency and be able to visualize, like, which queries on your database are taking the most time. You can also be able to get the conflict, the deadlock rates on your database. You can also be able to see the number of database transactions, such that if there is a significant drop in the number of transactions, you will be able to get an alert or check that whether there is actually an issue. You can see there's a visualization on the number of query calls. You can also see the number of rows that are inserted, deleted, updated, and so on and so forth. So all this data is collected using the agent, and now you can visualize it. And then lastly, another dashboard. This is a dashboard for Elasticsearch. So if you have in a production environment where you have very many Elasticsearch nodes, you can be able to now even monitor your own deployments, or rather your own environment for Elasticsearch using the same system. So you'll be able to see maybe shards that are failing, how long the queries are taking, and so on and so forth. That was a bit on now the brief on what it is, and explaining different things on the capabilities. Now I'll go straight to now how to go about installing it and using it for your own use. So the first thing is, if you want to download Elasticstack, you go to this website. This is where you download ELK. It's called elastic.co. You basically just search on Google Chrome or whichever browser you're using. Or once you search, you come to this website. Then you'll be able to, let me go back. You'll be able to get the different Elastic products. There's different kinds of products, but for now we are only interested in three. That is Elasticsearch, Kibana, and Logstash. So you basically click on download, and then you choose the specific system you're using. There are different kinds of systems, and then you download. It comes in form of a zip file. So once you unzip and store it in your preferred location, the next thing is to now you run them. So you can either run them as a service or run them manually. So for my Elasticsearch, I install it as a service. You go to to run Elasticsearch, you go to the binary file. Once you click on Elasticsearch, you go to the binary file. You copy the specific file location, and now once you come to you open command prompt on as an administrator, and then now you cd to the specific directory that has now the binary files. So once you do that, now I'd installed mine as a service. So to install it as a service, you basically run Elasticsearch, but all this documentation is found online in case you need to refer. So basically run Elasticsearch service install, but I've already installed mine. So what I'll do for mine, I'll just start it. One thing to note is that it uses a Java JDK. So in but you I think the current ELK, the most recent ELK installation file comes with its own bundled JDK. Before you had to install a Java JDK. Now the next thing you need, so once you have started your service, once you have installed, and then now you start your service, you just come to your browser to just confirm that your Elasticsearch is running. You just come to your browser and type localhost. It's found on the default port is 9200. You just run localhost port 9200. I think it's taking some time to come up. Okay, yeah. So I think it took a bit of time. So once you have it running, this is what you'll get um uh, when you access the port 9200 on localhost. You basically need the cluster name is named the same as your computer. So there are a number of details on it. So once you have this running, the next thing is to run Kibana. So for Kibana, to run Kibana, it's the same way. You cd to that file where you have the Kibana installed, to the Kibana binary file. So just copy it, you cd to that file. I was already running mine. So what you do is basically let me just type the command. So basically what you do, you just type once you have changed into that directory, you basically type kibana.bat and then you start. So to access Kibana, what you do, you type in Kibana. Once you install it, once you run the service, it immediately deploys on port 5601. So to access it, you'll basically type in port 5601. Let me just close it and start it again. So to access it, you just type localhost port 5601. But this is found in the log files. When you're starting it, you'll see this port on the log files. So this is what Kibana looks like. This is what the web UI looks like. So on the hamburger menu, you find the analytics. There's there are a couple of options. The key ones are the discover. This is where now you find the logs. The logs that are flowing will come to this page. So if you have logs that you've ingested, they'll come to this page. Up here, there is something called a data view. So for you to if you need to aggregate your indexes, remember Elasticsearch stores its data in indexes. So if you need to aggregate your indexes, you basically come and you come and create a data view. So once you create a data view, you basically use a regex pattern to be able to define the number of data indexes that you want to put in one view. So the other thing the other place that is important is the dashboards. So on this dashboard, there are some custom dashboards, but you can just create your own dashboards. You can also manage your indexes, and there are a couple of options that you can, and there is documentation around it. But for starters, you just access dashboards and discover where your logs will come in. So the last one is now Logstash. So for you to start Logstash, it's a bit different from the other ones, Kibana, Elasticsearch. So for you to start Logstash, you need to create a configuration file. So the configuration file will normally look like this. I saved mine as logstash.conf. It will basically look like this. It has three important parts. You have the input, you have the filter, and the output. So the input is where, now you remember I said you have your bits or your source of data, and then it goes to Logstash, to Elasticsearch, then to Kibana. So on the input, now you define your source of data. So for this specific data, we're going to use data that is on my machine. It's on this path. It's basically a CSV file. So I've defined the data where the CSV file is, and then the other parameters you have to set is now say start position, where do you want to read from the start, or do you want to read from a certain position, and then since DB is basically a Logstash parameter that assists for it to know where it has reached from reading data, so that it doesn't, you have your data in sequence. Then you have the filter. This is the parser. So if it's for log files, you normally see a log line is basically one log line, but you want it to filter it into the different fields. So you use filter to do the parsing. So in my case, for the CSV file, the CSV file looks like this. The CSV file looks like this. So it's basically a CSV file with different columns that I want to ingest to Elastic. Yes. Yeah. So for the CSV file, if you look at the CSV file now on you come and view it on this is VS Code. This is what the CSV file looks like. As you can see now, it's delimited by commas. So for my Logstash configuration, I basically use the separator as a comma, and then I define the columns. So I defined all those columns that were at the top. Then the next thing I did is to change the data type. As you can see, for the CSV file, we have different data types. Some are in strings, but there are a couple in as integers. So I also need to define my data types. So for these three data types, I define them to be integers. The last configuration that you put in is the output. Now our output will be now Elasticsearch, which is running on localhost port 9200. And then I'll also define the index that I want this data to go in with. So once you've defined this configuration file, you come and store it in one of, you come and store it on your Logstash configuration. Like I've stored mine on basically on the Logstash directory that I have. So the next thing that you'll do is to now you CD to that file that you've stored your Logstash configuration, and then now to run Logstash, you run it through this command logstash -f, and now you put in the name that you've stored your configuration file as. So my configuration file is stored in as logstash.conf. So you basically run it now. It will take a bit of time, but that's it. Meanwhile, what I can be going through is a, a scenario of where I've installed MetricBit on this computer. So once you install the MetricBit, you can have different visualizations. Like I have this visualization for my system metrics for my own computer. So you can see you're basically able to see the usage. So for me, what is important in the system metrics for my own computer. So you can see I'm able to get CPU usage, memory usage, disk usage. Some of these dashboards come stock defined within ELK, but you can also edit them as you please. You can edit them. You can move the tiles. You can have different colors depending on your use case. Honestly, so yeah. So this is what you get once you install something like metric bit on your system. You can get such system metrics, yeah, both infra and network. Okay, so we have our Logstash running, but I think there's an issue somewhere. So okay, just let me remove it. So what happened is that Logstash has already read this data before because I had already done it before, run it before, so I need to define a new data set. Okay. I'll stop it, commit it, and then we start it again. So when you want, if you want to see your data, you come to discover. As I said, I'd created that data view for this for my index. So so for my index was, remember my index was called course from the configuration file. So once I came to define the data view, what I did is I did a regex a pattern to define now my that is same with my index. So just save, see whether it's running. Yeah, it's now running. So you can see now we've been able to successfully ingest that data, the CSV data that we had on that CSV file is coming in. So so as you can see, this is how you open now the one log document. You can open it in JSON or you open it as a table. So so for the long log document, so you so from the configuration file, you remember we defined these as columns. So these will come in as fields. So from this document, if you have cost title, for example, cost title, it has different rows that belong to cost title. So you'll be able for each now field, for each log document, you'll be able to get a field called cost title, and you know the row, the particular maybe row one will come as that. So now you'll use these fields to now if you want to do any kind of visualization, you will use these fields. So if you want to do a visualization, um, basically now come to create dashboard. Basically now to create, you come to create a dashboard. Once you come to create a dashboard, let's add a panel, lens. So there are different kinds of visualizations that you have. As you can see from these, you can create a table, there are bar graphs, there are single metric values. You can get a line graph. You can use an area, magnitude, maps. You also have maps. You have pie charts, donuts, different kinds. For example, if you look at our data and you want to see, for instance, for our data, you want to see maybe the number of the ratings per course. You want to visualize the ratings, how the spread for ratings for different courses is. We can use a bar graph. So the next thing we define is the data views. Remember, our data view that contains our data is called course. can change this timeline to 1 hour. So this is normally used for data that is coming in, streaming in continuously. It's just that now my data is more or less static. So for the horizontal axis, we'll have now the ratings. And then for the vertical axis, you can put in now the course titles. And what you want is now a unique count of the course titles. If you want maybe just a count, you can just use count. If you want average, there are different aggregations that you can use. So as you can see, we've created a bar graph that shows us the distribution for the different ratings. So you just save, and then now you have your bar graph. You can add different panels on them. If you want to visualize something else using maybe a metric, a single metric value, if you want to see the total number of courses, for example, you can just come and look for the particular field, then a unique count of the courses, and then you see. So there are 68 unique courses in that CSV file that have just so in the event that you have log files, then now you have a time series data. You can have time series data like line graphs that now where the horizontal axis is the timestamp. But so for this one, it's just because it's static data. Then you just save your dashboard. You can call it you can just give it a title and then you save it. So once you come to the dashboards over here, you'll be able now to see your specific dashboard, and you can use it to visualize. So if it's an application you visualizing, you'll basically be able to see your application performance on your dashboard. Yeah, so that's basically it for my presentation. I can take any questions that you have.
Thank you very much, Alvin. So I think we can give the platform to the viewers. So if anyone has any question on ELK, since this is an open source tool, so I think we must be having some questions. Maybe the comparison with the existing tools and so on. So I can see Charles has raised the hand. So Charles, you can go on.
Hi, Alvin. Thank you for the presentation. Now, I would like to know if my application is emitting different response statuses like 200, 400, and 500. Is it possible to have them on a time series graph so that I can see maybe from 8 a.m. to up to now, with the passage of time, maybe based on hourly, I can see at 9 a.m. there were maybe 20 responses for 200 and one response for let's say 400 or 500, so that if I'm looking at it, I can be able to see the changes in time based on the responses that have been happening, so that I can be able to know if my application is now emitting more 400s than 200s, so that I can see like maybe the application was performing well up to 12, and then after 12 the number of 400s went up and the number of 200s went down, something like that. Is it possible?
Yes, I believe your name was Charles. So Charles, so yes, that is actually very possible. So what you do on your log where you have now the different different information, once you come to pass them, you'll pass the response status as one field. So that response status will contain now your 200 for one document here, 200, 300, 400, then 500, or whichever response status that you have. You'll also have a timestamp. So once you come to visualize, what you do on this horizontal axis, you put in your timestamp. And then on the vertical axis, now you'll have account. You'll have account of, you can use records. You can have records, or if you have something like transaction ID, if your logs have unique transaction ID, you can use the transaction IDs. And then once you come to the breakdown, this is now where you use now your response status codes. So what happens is that now you'll have different lines. You'll have a line for the 500s, you have a line for the 200s, you have a line for the 400s, and so on. So you can be able to see at whichever time period, you can change this time period to even 24 hours, 48 hours, depending on how long you are storing your logs for. So you'll be able to see over a span of time how now the different status codes change with time. So yeah, so that's a very possible use case. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, you have. Thank you.
I had seen a question somewhere.
Yes, so I've seen Mishka as raised the answer. Mishka, you can go on.
Awesome. Thanks, Tony and Gachine. So, Charles, as a follow-up to the question, is it possible then to layer this time series graph with an alert? What I mean is, assume you have set up a time series graph. Can we layer this to the extent that you can say if a certain threshold, let's say this number of errors, let's say error 5 or 2 is reached, then it triggers an alert, and to what channels from the free version can they be forwarded to? I mean channels, I mean email, SMS, yeah.
Okay, so yeah, so to answer the question, yes, Kibana has an option for alerts. It's called it basically define the rules. So what happens? The only limitation that we have is that it does not have an application to send now your emails and SMSs. So what you do, you create your own custom application that now receives the alerts and sends out the emails and SMSs. So you come and define your roles on Kibana. You come and define your roles and say, for instance, if the number of 200s reach, I mean, if the number of 500s are beyond like 1,000, for example, within a span of say 1 hour, I should get an alert, and then you set out what kind of alert you get. So now you connect it. It has a connector that now you connect it to your application, the application that the custom application you've made on the side now to be able to send out the alerts. So you define on the custom application, that's where you define whether they are emails, the SMSs, and so on and so forth. But the roles themselves, you come and configure them on Kibana. So yes, it's possible, but you have to do some dev work on the side so as to be able to send out the specific kind of communication that you want.
Awesome. Thanks, Alvin.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Alvin, for the answer. So there's some questions on the chat. So I'll read each and every one of them. So the first one was from Kevin Ogaba. So he was asking, how about installing it in Kubernetes environment? Alvin, you can answer that.
Yeah. So Kevin, yeah, it's possible to install it in a Kubernetes environment. There is if you search online, there's documentation on how to go about it. So yeah, you can install it in a Kubernetes environment. At Safaricom, there's an ELK environment running on our EKS cluster. So yeah, it's possible to install. The next question, I think it's please confirm you need computer admin rights to install. Yes, you need admin rights to install any of the installations, whether you're installing the Elastic agent, you're installing Elasticsearch or Kibana, you need computer admin rights to do that. And then Kevin is asking specifically the agents to be used, for example, to be used for APM servers. I have an issue enrolling them to Fleet server. Okay, for that one, I think you can reach out to me on the side, and then I can assist you. For the APM agents, they are usually there's a specific way in which you install. So you have to have an APM server. you have to create an APM server, and in this case, the APM server could be your specific server where the Elastic agent is installed, or it could be a separate APM server. So there's a way you do it. You do the configurations, and then now you can get your data on Kibana. So you can reach out to me. I'll share my email for that. Then lastly, hello, I've heard of Grafana. How is it different from Kibana? Which tool to use is the best? So Grafana is basically a visualization tool. So Grafana depends on data inputs from other sources. So for example, you can use Prometheus with Grafana, where you use Prometheus to source your data, maybe from a server or from whichever source, and then now you visualize it from Grafana. I think Grafana also has APIs that you can, maybe if you have a script running to maybe fetch data from a DB, you can now send the data to Grafana and use Grafana for visualization. So so to answer your question, so how different is it from Kibana? I think the difference is basically how you do the visualizations, like the procedure to do it. I think okay, from my limited use of Grafana, it's a bit, it requires some reading for you to be able to define those to use that query language for Grafana. Yeah, so I hope I've answered. Oh, which tool is to use is the best? I think that is very subjective. So, but in my limited use, I would prefer Kibana, but probably it's because I have more extensive use of Kibana than Grafana. Yeah, I don't know whether there's any other question.
Any more questions? I think we still have more time left. Yes, Samuel.
So for me, I think that the session was very informative. What I would only ask if you guys WhatsApp community link for the Coding and Kahawa group.
Yes, Samuel, we have it. I'll share it on chat in a few minutes.
Okay. Yeah, there's another hand. Yes, Ton, you can go on.
Hi, mine is like a question to Alvin. So, okay, in case you want to implement maybe for a real time, maybe you have your producer proceed to Kafka, then from Kafka, like you process it, then like for like PubSub, and then like, would you like recommend directly to Elasticsearch, then like visualization, or like put it to a DB, then like a MongoDB, then like push it to Elasticsearch? Yeah.
Okay. So for Kafka, I'm not very sure that ELK has an integration for it. But I can find out. But yeah, if at all there is an integration, then it's possible. Otherwise, you can push it to a database and query the DB and send the log files or metrics to Elasticsearch directly. It has an API that you can use to that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Yes, Francis.
Oh, hi. Maybe just to add on top of the question of adding Kafka. Okay, I work with Alvin with the setup for ELK. What we did initially, we wanted actually to add a Kafka buffer. There is a plugin for that you can add, but we found out Logstash in itself, it can handle the whole thing on its own. So it's more optimized to, if you're pushing a lot of traffic, Logstash itself can just handle it without the need for Kafka, but it's possible to add that layer if needed. But yeah, it's possible for that.
Okay. Thanks, Francis. Any more question or clarification? Okay. If there's no question, so I think Alvin, you'll share the presentation so that we can go through it again.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So,
I can share
okay,
the presentation.
Okay. Okay, I can see Doris has shared the link on chat. So if there's no more question, then let me take this opportunity to thank Alvin for this wonderful and insightful presentation, and for being able to share his knowledge with us and this community. So we really appreciate. I also want to thank everyone who took the opportunity to join. Thank you very much for taking your time to join this presentation. And I believe you have learned something. I also want to thank Safaricom and Coding and Kahawa and the organizers for organizing for us this wonderful session, where we have been able to learn a lot about ELK and how we can use it in our application and environments. Yeah, so I've been your host. My name is Tony Blaire Okoth from OSS. And until next time, you can have a good day. Thank you.